Beneath the bustling streets of ancient Rome, under the feet of senators and merchants, lay a secret that would make even the bravest legionnaire tremble. Rome was a city of light, but it was built on a foundation of blood and sacred fire. At the heart of it were the Vestal Virgins, the most powerful women in the city. But their power came with a price so steep it defied the laws of mercy. If they failed their duty, they weren't just killed, they were erased. Today, we step into the shadows of the Forum to witness the ultimate psychological horror, the living burial of a fallen Vestal. To understand the punishment, we must understand the position. Chosen between the ages of 6 and 10, these girls were plucked from noble families to serve Vesta, the goddess of the hearth. For 30 years, they were the keepers of Rome's soul. They held the keys to the city's safety. As long as the sacred fire burned, Rome stood. They were legally independent, held seats of honor at the Colosseum, and could pardon criminals with a single look. They were living goddesses. But this divine status required a vow of absolute chastity. Their blood was considered sacred, too holy to be spilled by a blade. And that is exactly what made their execution so horrific. What happened when the fire went out? Or worse, when a Vestal was accused of incestum, the breaking of her vow. In ancient Rome, a failed Vestal was a bad omen for the entire empire. If Rome suffered a military defeat or a plague, the people looked at the Vestals. Someone must have sinned. The trial was swift, led by the Pontifex Maximus. There was no defense. If found guilty, the Vestal was stripped of her dignity. Her white robes were replaced by the garments of the dead. The city went into mourning. Silence fell over Rome as the procession began. A living woman was being carried in a funeral litter, bound and gagged, through a crowd that watched in terrified silence. The destination was the Campus Sceleratus, the field of wickedness. Here, a small underground chamber awaited. Because she was sacred, Roman law forbade the spilling of her blood. They couldn't hang her, and they couldn't behead her. So, they found a loophole that was far more cruel. They would let the gods decide her fate. They led her down a ladder into a small, vaulted stone room. Inside, there was a bed, a lamp with a tiny bit of oil, and a small portion of bread, water, and milk. It wasn't a gesture of mercy. It was a ritualistic necessity to avoid the sin of starving a sacred person directly. Imagine the psychological torture. The Vestal is left in the damp cold of the vault. She hears the ladder being pulled up. Then, the sound begins. Clink, clink, scrape. The sound of bricks being laid. One by one, the entrance is sealed with stone and mortar. Above her, the earth is leveled. People walk over her, oblivious to her screams. She is left in absolute darkness. The oil in the lamp flickers and dies. She is trapped in a space no larger than a closet, surrounded by the weight of the entire city. She has enough food for perhaps 2 days. She sits in the silence, waiting for the oxygen to thin or for her heart to fail from sheer terror. This wasn't just death. It was an exit from existence itself. But was it always about religion? History suggests that many Vestals were victims of political purges. When an emperor needed a scapegoat or a rival family needed to be destroyed, a Vestal's virtue was an easy target. Domitian, one of Rome's most cruel emperors, famously buried the chief Vestal Cornelia alive to prove his own moral authority, despite her cries of innocence. The living burial was the ultimate tool of state control, a theater of terror designed to keep the population in awe of the law and the gods. Today, the ruins of the House of the Vestals still stand in Rome. Tourists walk past them every day, unaware of the screams that once echoed beneath the soil. The Vestals were the heart of Rome, but when that heart faltered, the city showed no mercy. They were the holy untouchables until they became the living dead. Thank you for joining us in the shadows. If you found this story as haunting as we did, subscribe to the dark side of history. Some secrets are better left buried, but we will always find them